Give us some base case scenarios as to what happens from here then in the UK politics and therefore in Brexit, Steen. What is your assumption?
Well, my assumption is that Boris Johnson have a clean win and he goes on to have probably in 2020 the biggest fiscal expansion we've seen in the UK since the 1970s. I think a country, when you Prime Minister after winning the election, you have to look at a country which is split down the middle. The only way you can heal that rift is basically by having an expansionary policy that goes into healthcare, goes into education, all of the areas that pretty much unite people in being in this great country. So I think being out of the EU sort of limit on 2% deficit, I think we see a significant increase in spending next year, paying back the voters for vote for him, but also trying to heal the process that we've been through with the Brexit.
Yeah, and a lot of talk about some of that spending happening outside London to try and spread the wealth. What level of spending do you think gilt markets will tolerate, if that is the right word?
So you have two opposing forces. You have the economy, of course, being extremely weak, on the brink of recession even, so you have probably policy rates from the UK being negative, and then you have the spending going back. I think people will see the spending as a one-off, a 2020 experiment, and then there will be drained back, run back, and so I think gilts will be all right in this environment, but mostly because the external factors are going to be very supportive of lower interest rates.
But if you're unleashing a big fiscal wave, and if it's all around infrastructure projects, that doesn't sound like something you get done and dusted in a year. Surely these have long lead times, some of these fiscal plans.
A number of countries trying to do that right now. I was just in Russia, they're doing an infrastructure project. It seems very difficult actually for government to enforce it, even though they have the capital and the money and the budget for doing it. But absolutely, it will be a long-term project. But it will also increase productivity, which of course is what UK needs right now. It's the increase in productivity, a strengthening of the NHS, a strengthening of the educational system, because that's where you get the long-term benefits from this. So I think there's pros and cons to this environment, but I think the market is already knowing that there will be spent. I've seen a number of headlines, Daily Mail, the FT, that we are going back to 1970s, the biggest spend we've seen ever since.